Yes. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Of course, you know, if when you go home in a week or 2 or 5 months, we don't know which. Are you loading these up on YouTube now?
I haven't been, but recently, no.
You haven't done that recently?
No.
How many talks do you have backlogged? 4?
3? Maybe?
3?
3?
Could we go for 5?
But do you remember there was about a month we didn't record anything?
Oh, I didn't ask you about that.
Okay.
So that means that they're, what, 2 months old?
One, I think is 2 months old.
Okay, anyway, so sometime in the far future, you could go ahead and relive the talk today on YouTube. You just type in Desert Zen Center, and then you'll see my face, and you'll see his face, and Gooey Bum, who's now been absent for a month. Yes, he's got the sniffles down in Los Angeles. But I'm always trying to come up with a topic for a talk so that I'm not repeating myself too much, although I know I repeat myself a lot, which is okay to some extent, you know, because the Buddha taught that you need to say something 3 times for people to remember it. So that was his way of teaching. And actually that's public speaking. If you ever take a class in college on public speaking, they tell you to introduce your topic, talk about your topic, and then tell everybody what you just talked about, because most of them were sleeping anyway. So you do it 3 times. So I was looking at this book by a Westerner that in the Theravadan tradition, and I'm always trying to come up with ideas for something to talk about other than just doing the same thing over and over again. And it talked about good ideas or important things. So he started off his little thing. This was a transcription of the talk that he made. He's in England. The English have never embraced Mahayana Buddhism. They really like Theravada Buddhism, which I understand entirely, because if you remember the history of the British, they had a big colony called India, and there was Theravada Buddhism in there. She gets my humor. And they had a little colony called Ceylon that was growing tea. And Ceylon was the reason why all the British started drinking tea. You know, we started drinking coffee because the coffee was grown in South America and the Caribbean. That's how we became coffee drinkers. And then when we colonized the British, we took coffee over to them and owned them from then on. So the British have Theravada Buddhism, and they have Westerners in Theravada Buddhism. And this fellow was talking about what's important in this little book we have in the library, which you could read. And he asked the question. He was talking to a group like this, and he said, what's really important? So I don't normally do this. Mung does this. I'm trying to break him of the habit. He goes at the end of every talk, so are there any questions? And then it turns into a free-for-all, you know. But I will ask you, can you tell me what you think? Now this is life. See, we have a couple youngsters in here. So they're going to have a really different idea of what's important as opposed to the so-called adults. Anybody? What's important?
Peace.
What is it?
Peace.
Peace. Well, that's a good answer. That's an excellent answer. Anybody else got anything they want to say? What's really important in life?
Good grades.
What did she say?
Good grades.
Good grades.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good answer for a teenager. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Community, like social community. Like
Social
that.
communities
Yeah,
are
just-
important. Yes, as you grow older, you're just on the cusp of that. It's just beginning to happen. You and Steve, starting to get old. Ooh. Yes. Coordination would be mine.
One of them?
I would offer coordination as an important thing, as I pull the little microphone thing off the table. Well, he didn't agree with you. And Buddhism in general would say, well, yes, but. So he had three things, and I read the first, and I said, of course, of course. I haven't talked about this in years. So we should talk about the two things that we try to develop. And I have a very strong bias. I want to say we want to develop these through meditation, because that's what we're supposed to be, as a meditation center here. And we do meditation before we start the service. And we have meditation down in our little building, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 o'clock in the evening. And so I want to say that meditation is the only way that you can accomplish these two things. And that's total nonsense. But that's my bias, okay? Because the two things are wisdom and compassion. And this is what he felt were the two really important things in life, were wisdom and compassion. So let's talk about wisdom first. Wisdom is seeing things as they are. Not seeing things as they appear, but seeing things as they truly are. And how do you develop that wisdom? Well, of course, immediately I want to say you want to do lots and lots of meditation. But you know, in the country of America, the form of Buddhism that is commonly practiced is Zen Buddhism. And I would like to be able to say that we have these pockets of people that go to centers and go to retreats and go to temples, and they're all very wise because they do meditation, but they're not. They demonstrate their wisdom by how they act, right? Yeah, it's not about what you talk like, it's about what you do. And they demonstrate the fact that they continue to have the same problems that everybody else has. They continue to worry about how much money they have, how big their car is, how beautiful they are, what status they have in the community. Do people respect them? They worry about that. All of these things are human foibles. And they're really not the important things in life. The important thing is wisdom. And what is wisdom? Well, when people will say to me, I have to give a talk next week or the week after to a retreat in Washington. I have a student up there that has a temple, and a couple ongoing businesses support the temple. And he's decided that he's doing online retreats, which is okay. People stay home and they get up and they Zoom with him, and you know, and he says, okay, now it's time for you to do your walking meditation, and the Zoom shuts down, and supposedly they're out, you know, doing walking meditation, and then it comes back and you see a picture of a guy laying in a hammock sleeping, and you're, oh, well, he must have been very tired. And they said the title of the theme of this retreat, it's only a one-day retreat. A couple months ago they did a weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and they asked me to give a Dharma talk, and I did. So now the monk that got a hold of me and said, well, you can talk on anything you want to, but the theme of this retreat is enlightenment. And I think he said awakening, but same thing. And I thought, isn't that wonderful? I would like now to talk to you about the taste of water. That's all I can say. But if I give you a glass of water, I've given you a sermon on the taste of water, right? Now you know what water tastes like. But how do I explain to you what water tastes like? Think about it. Come back next week and tell me what you came up with. Because I'm dying to know what you would say about water. It tastes like, and you can't go it tastes like, because water doesn't taste like anything but water, does it? And so we have wisdom. Maybe I'll talk to them about what I'm talking to you about, wisdom. What is wisdom? Well, within Buddhism, one way of saying it is awakening. You've developed a level of wisdom that you're awake. Awake to what? You're awake to your true nature. And when you wake up to your true nature, you wake up to the nature of everything else. One of the paradoxes that the Japanese brought over here when they brought their form of Buddhism was the notion that there's no such thing as good or bad, evil or saintly, blessed, whatever you want to say. And everybody completely and totally misunderstood that. We had beatniks running down the street naked, screaming profanity, saying, this is true enlightenment here because I don't feel restricted in any way, shape, or form. I am going to be spontaneous because Japanese Zen emphasizes the notion of being spontaneous, which has nothing to do with running down the street naked. And this is a real occurrence that happened. It has to do with not always worrying about what you get out of it or what the result is going to be. You know, imagine you were an artist painting a picture and you really wanted to be a good artist. So every time you started to paint a picture, you started worrying about whether the picture was a good picture. Anybody in here paint? Just a little bit?
Do it on an art tablet instead of actual physical painting.
Yeah. Do you worry about whether it's a good job? Or do you paint?
I really just go through it until after it's done.
You do what now?
I just continue painting until it's all done, and then I look at it.
And then what after you're all done? I got to turn my hearing aid up because you're talking so quiet, Linda. So when it's all done, then do you worry about it?
Either I delete it or keep it.
I see. Oh, okay, so you either keep it or you throw it away. If it didn't work out, it's not as good as you want it to be, you discard it. And then you start doing another painting? Usually, yeah. That's the way most artists work. Most artists don't go in saying, I've got to paint a really great painting. And if it's not a really great painting, I have no purpose in my life. That's pretty ridiculous, isn't it? If you think of it the way I said it, a little bit ridiculous, just a little bit. Okay? I want you to think of the singer that you really, really like, who really doesn't think about what they're singing. Does that sound impossible to you? It's not impossible at all. Let me put it in a more practical term. Everybody's familiar with basketball, right? Yes? We grew up in the country that invented basketball. Yeah. So if you've never played basketball, you might not relate to this, but most kids by the time they've gone through school have played basketball a little bit. Do you think the person that makes the baskets is thinking about making a basket when he shoots to make a basket? No. She said no. I'll tell you that if you want to miss, think about it. Do you think the person playing baseball that has to hit the ball that's coming at them 100 miles an hour with a bat is thinking about hitting the ball? Because I can guarantee you if he's thinking about it, he just missed it. So what's going on? Do you think about the great musicians thought about being great? And I'm not going to make it popular because that's an ongoing teenage argument about who's the best and this and that. But let's just take some of the people from the past, way in the past. Do you think Mozart thought about being great? Mozart had a phenomenal mind. Mozart could write a symphony in his mind, have it all written in his mind, and then write it down. That's a phenomenal ability to be able to do that, because we don't have that in popular music. Popular music, I play popular music. Popular music is a voice and a guitar, or a voice and a guitar and a bass, or a voice and a guitar and a drum. It's not really complicated. But if you go listen to a full orchestra play, there's all kinds of instruments in there. And the guy that's writing the piece of music for that orchestra has to think of all those instruments and how they're going to sound when they come together, and he has to hear it in his mind. And if he's thinking about, I want this to be super duper and everybody's going to tell me what a wonderful job I did, he's probably not going to do a very good job. But if he gets into the flow of doing this, and he's trying to write music that inspires him as he writes it, he's too busy writing good music to think about it. And most people that write songs are the same way. I've known people that could just start writing a song for you. You'd say, could you give me a little song about getting on the bus and going into town? And they just start knocking it out. And you can't think about something if you're doing that, you're doing it. And life is an activity. And if you can live your life without thinking about it, you're coming close to wisdom. And the first thing you have to stop worrying about is what other people think. And the next thing you have to stop worrying about is if people are going to appreciate the wonder of whatever it is you've done. And you just do the best you can. Now, the best you can is an effort, it's not a thought. A lot of times around here, I don't do the best I can, and I get embarrassed when I realize it. You know, it's true. I'll tell anybody, when I start a project, I get at least 95% of it done. Our memorial hall over here, I remembered something the other day. This was years ago, when we put that up, that the bottom didn't get nailed off. The bottom of the wall didn't get nailed off. Well, what I remembered was there was two sidings that went together, and the bottom down there wasn't nailed off. And somebody pointed it out to me. I said, I gotta do that. That was 4 or 5 years ago. And I thought of it yesterday. And I came down with a hammer and a box of nails. And I looked at the bottom of the wall, and it wasn't nailed off. Everything was nailed this way and across the top, but the bottom never got nailed off. And so that's what happened yesterday here. 5 years late, it got nailed off. So I'm not very good one to talk about finishing things, but some things I do finish. It just takes me a really long time to do it. But wisdom is seeing things as they are. I have the practice of meditation here. But we also have the practice of chanting. And Americans that come here to study find out we have a really big practice of work. Because that's the only way things get done, is if we work. And there should be some practice of study. This lady right here told me she was having a hard time with some concepts. And the venerable monk here had put these books in our little glass case. Some of them cost, and some of them are donations, and some of them are giveaways. And this was the Sutra of
Kshitigarbha, the Bodhisattva.
Yeah, Kshitigarbha, who is also called the Earth Storm Bodhisattva. And it's a little sutra, it's not very long. It's kind of like the Diamond Sutra, it's not very long. And she was reading in thing there, and she said, I think I need to study more because I don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about these things. And that's okay, because that particular sutra is kind of hard to follow unless you've been around Buddhism a really long time. But you know what she expressed? She expressed honesty. Now, I think in our practice for wisdom, going towards wisdom, remember what wisdom is? Wisdom is seeing things as they are, not the way we want them to be. That's an important concept. The Buddha finally saw things as they are. The Buddha had a question. Why are things so messed up? Why are people so unhappy? And he went out and he kept working that in his head for 7 years. And he thought at first that people were unhappy because they got sick. And then he thought, well, maybe they're unhappy because they get old. And then maybe they're unhappy because they die. That's not why people are unhappy. People aren't unhappy because they get sick and they get old and they die. People are unhappy because they don't want to get sick, they don't want to get old, and they don't want to die. That's completely different. And when the Buddha realized that, he saw the truth of what he realized. And he started teaching other forest monks in India the things that he had discovered about reality. Reality is people really don't want to be sick, because being sick is not a good experience. And here we are, the entire world is sick right now. It's been over 100 years since the entire world was sick. We had countries that were sick, but we didn't have the whole world that was sick. But back in 1918 and 19, the whole world was sick with the flu. And my grandmother used to say that every family in the town she lived in lost somebody. Somebody died in every family during that flu. And the reason for that is we didn't understand what it was. We barely understood what germs were. We barely understood what nutrition was. We barely understood how to stay healthy. And here we had a whole world that got sick with the flu. And now we have, they like to say that COVID-19 is like the flu. They haven't really given it, I guess COVID's its name. But they're saying it's like the flu. Well, it's certainly like the flu that everybody's sick with it. There's no doubt about that. So that causes us to do a whole lot of things. That causes us to worry about getting sick. Why? Because we don't want to get sick. We certainly don't want to die. Why? If you're a Christian, you go to heaven and everything's good. If you're a Muslim, you go to paradise and everything's beautiful. If you're a Buddhist, you just start over again. So where's the terror? Where does the threat and the terror comes from of dying? Because we don't want to give up what we have. We don't want to lose, she doesn't want to lose her mom. Mom doesn't want to lose her daughter. Another daughter over here, you don't want to lose it because you're extremely attached to each other. And the Buddha said, therein lies the problem, attachment. You have a desire for things to stay the same because you're attached to things. You buy a car. I heard about this young lady, I think she's 22, lives over on the other side of town. She bought a BMW, which of course, I had a teenager tell me, oh, that's the big car now. Well, it was the big car 20 years ago. You remember when all the movie stars went out and bought Beamers? Mm-hmm. It was the thing to have. And she has a convertible, and somebody came by her mom's house when she was parked in the driveway and cut the top. Oh. And it was the end of the world for her. She didn't understand impermanence. She still doesn't understand it. She thinks the problem is somebody cut the top of her car. The problem is that she was attached to the top. That's what she's unhappy about. You can buy a new top. Somebody keys your car, you paint the car. Is it expensive? Yes, it is. But it's not the end of the world. So, this wisdom of seeing things as they are is a really important idea, that we see things as they are. In my life, I've had more people than I can count tell me that they could not sing. I've had so many people tell me they were tone deaf. I've met one person in my entire life that was tone deaf. And they were tone deaf. Because I'd say, do you hear the difference? Well, yeah, you're not tone deaf. To be tone deaf, you can't hear the difference. No, that isn't what it means. It means you can't sing. No, to be tone deaf means you can't hear the pitch as it's said. High and low mean nothing to you. It's almost unheard of to really have sing. Every one of you has an artistic talent. You just don't know what it is. Linda paints. You do all kinds of interesting things. Okay? Everybody has a talent. Everybody is talented. I'm not saying everybody is the best at something in the whole world. You don't need to be the best of anything. But you have to gain wisdom to understand that. I do cartoons. Spontaneous cartoons. I don't do comic books. My brother did comic books in junior high school, and he still draws cartoons. I just do cartoons of the monk's life. I'll have a monk talking to a mouse. You know, are they good? I don't even care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I draw it and I'm satisfied with it, everything's fine. And very few cartoons have I actually thrown away because they were bad. I can always see something in it to appreciate. I write poetry. It's not that great. I used to have notebooks full of poetry. I passed English in 11th grade by writing a poem every day and giving it to my English teacher. That's the only reason she passed me. Is it good? Eh. It only took me about 30 years to appreciate E.E. Cummings. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to our library. By the way, our library is open. It's been open for almost 3 months and they didn't tell anybody. Yeah. But I wandered in there and checked out 10 books because I refused to buy any. At my age, I don't want to buy any more books. I just want to go to the library and get a book. Then I take it back when I'm done with it and get another book. Wisdom. Seeing things as they are. Do you want to be beautiful? I have 4 ladies in here. Do you want to be beautiful? Why do you think you're not? That's the question you should ask yourself. Not why am I not beautiful, or why am I ugly, or whatever thing that you put in your mind. The question you should ask yourself is, why is this so important that it's ruining my life? And if you don't think it ruins people's lives, just go to the drugstore and look at all the cosmetics that people buy trying to look different than they look. People are unhappy with what they got. It's kind of difficult to change that. The second really important thing is compassion. Compassion is to be able to feel the pain of others. Compassion is to care about somebody other than yourself. You know, people that, particularly people that come to Buddhism, Hannah was born a Buddhist. She didn't, I think, now, she might have been born a Catholic. Every once in a while I meet a Vietnamese that was born a Catholic and then they became a Buddhist. But in Vietnam, when they're not arguing with each other, and there were some bad arguments, particularly during the war between the Catholics and the Vietnamese. And I still read stuff about that, and it's time for them to stop it. It's time for them to support each other, the Catholics and the Buddhists in Vietnam. Because there's not a hard line between the two of them. They need to take care of each other, and I tell them that when I go down there. Compassion is caring about somebody other than yourself. We know that children tend to be a little selfish. It's difficult. Mm-hmm. Teenage years are the hardest years of life, and I believe that adamantly. When I taught high school, I told my kids, it's bad now, but it gets better. I said, you know, because a lot of kids think when I turn 18, I go get a job, I have my own place, I can drive a car, I can stay out as late as I want to, I can do anything I want to, except I've got to get up in the morning an hour before I have to go to work, take a shower, eat something, go to work 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day, then come home tired, make something to eat, And then think about going out and having a party. And you can do that at first until you get really tired of being tired all the time. And then people start thinking to themselves, well, maybe I should stay home this night. Maybe I'll just go out on Friday night or Saturday night. I can remember when I was in my early 20s, when I got out of the service. Friday and Saturday I'd go out and drink. And then after about a year and a half, 2 years of that, I woke up one Saturday morning and said, God, what a waste of time. My head hurts, and I won't feel good until this afternoon, because I got drunk last night, because that's what young people do, right? Because to be an adult is to be able to get drunk. Nowadays, to be an adult is to get loaded. Yeah, until you do something really stupid, and then you go, well, maybe that wasn't the best decision I ever made in my whole life. Yeah. But compassion is not thinking all the time about yourself. Compassion is thinking about somebody else. You know, there's a lady, she was my student down in Orange County 25 years ago, and I used to go down every week. And a couple, 3 months ago, I don't know how long ago it was, but during the pandemic, she sent me a package. She sent an email and said, I'm sending you a package. I made these for the monks at the temple. And she had a homemade, nice mask, like you're wearing with the flag and all that. She had made all these masks for the monks here. And she's up in San Francisco, and she's got children and a husband, and she thought of us. That's where compassion comes in. I get a lady that lives in San Diego, and she sends us money every month. I've got another lady that lives in El Monte, and she's been up here 3 times with her friends. You know, there's always 3 or 4 or 5 of them come, and they brought food. That's compassion. They could stay down there and stay safe and not go anywhere and think, well, I don't get to go to the temple, so, you know, the Vietnamese are wonderful, and the Chinese and the Jews. They go to a temple, they donate money, because they realize the monks don't have any money unless they give it to them. And you know, I got a call from this lady, I know her voice, she has a very scruffy voice like that. And she calls me and she says, how are you doing? I worry about you, are you okay? And I go, yes I am. She says, do you have enough coffee? See, I drink Vietnamese coffee. I drink a big cup of it every morning. That's usually all I drink, and I'm hooked. I got hooked in Orange County on Vietnamese style coffee, and I don't want any other style of coffee in the morning. That's what I want. And she's the one that brings me coffee. These big bags, you know, you got little tubes and you put them in the coffee and everything. And she called me to find out if I had enough coffee. Well, she wasn't thinking about herself, she was thinking about me. The more you think about the other people and the less you think about yourself, the more wise you're going to be. Because at some point, you're going to realize who you are. And when you realize who you are, you're going to relax. Because it doesn't matter what you look like, and it doesn't matter how smart you are, and it doesn't matter how much money you make. None of those things really matter. What matters is that you're moving through life and you're happy, you're not suffering. And when the Buddha, you know, he had a very drastic kind of thing. In the beginning, he only had monks. There were no lay people in the beginning. Because in India, to be a monk, oh, that's a hard job. But he softened that job. He told the monks, you can take a bath a week. That doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But he said, if the weather is really, really hot, then you can take more baths. Ascetics wandering in the forest in India today don't ever take a bath. You know when they're coming before you ever see them, because they don't take any baths. They smell so bad. But they're holy, and they don't worry about that. They have another approach to it, is, you know, if I smell so bad, I won't notice it anymore. And by the way, that's true. When I was in the Army, I went 32 days without a bath. And about 2 weeks, I stopped smelling myself. Everybody else could smell me, but I stopped smelling myself. And the Buddha said, we're not going to go over here, and we're not going to go over here, we're going to go right here. And so we have to keep our body healthy so our mind is healthy. And in those days, it was one meal.